My parents left me in debt to fund my brother's failed business. Now, they want to meet my daughter. Should I let them back into my life? I never expected to be writing this, yet here I am, seeking help from strangers on the internet about my family situation. My name is John, and I am 32 years old. I've been estranged from my parents for over 8 years, and now they're attempting to re-establish contact. I'm not sure how to handle this, and I might really benefit from some outside advice. To comprehend my condition, you must first know about my childhood. I grew up in a little town in Ohio as the older of 2 sons. My younger brother Ben, now 30 years old, was born when I was just 2 years old. Ben was unquestionably the golden child. He was outgoing, athletic, and charming, all qualities that I lacked. I was more introverted and concentrated on academics. Our parents, particularly our father, were always more interested in Ben's activities than mine. Dad was a former high school football standout who never completely recovered from his golden days. Ben's passion for athletics thrilled Dad. He'd spend hours in the backyard teaching Ben how to throw a perfect spiral while I sat on the porch with my books. Mom wasn't as open about her preference, but it was still present. She'd swoon over Ben's finger paintings and display them on the fridge, yet my report cards with straight A's were received with a simple, "Good job, John." I recall a particularly terrible occurrence when I was 10. I won the school science fair with a project about renewable energy. I was so pleased to show my parents, but when I arrived home, they were too busy celebrating Ben's selection to the junior football team to look at my blue ribbon. As we grew older, the partiality became more apparent. In high school, I immersed myself in my academics, joining both the debate team and the math club. I was determined to enroll in a good college and become a doctor. Ben, on the other hand, got by on his charisma and physical abilities. He was the standout quarterback, courting cheerleaders and attending parties on weekends. I still recall the night of my high school graduation. I was valedictorian and had spent weeks preparing my speech. As I stood on the stage, I looked around the audience for my family. Dad was there, but he was occupied recording Ben, who was having fun with his friends in the back row. Mom, at least, appeared to be paying attention, but I noticed her frequently looking over at Ben. Even in my success, I felt as if I was still in my brother's shadow. When it came time for college, I was accepted to a prominent university on a partial scholarship. I was overjoyed, but it was short-lived. My parents sat me down and informed me they couldn't afford to help with my tuition. They claimed they had been saving for years, but unexpected bills had arisen, and they just did not have the funds. I was devastated but determined. I took out college loans, worked part-time jobs, and completed undergrad. It was challenging, but I felt pleased with myself for doing it on my own. I worked as a teacher, a library assistant, and even spent a summer working night shifts at a 24-hour diner. I was so fatigued at times that I could barely keep my eyes open during lectures, but I persevered. Meanwhile, Ben had determined that college was not for him. He worked at a neighborhood garage and spent his evenings drinking and partying. Our parents never expressed concern over his lack of direction. They just laughed and remarked, "That's our Ben, always living in the moment." Then, during my senior year, I learned the truth. Ben, who had been working at the garage for a few years, abruptly announced that he was starting his own vehicle repair shop. To my surprise, our parents had handed him their entire savings money they had told me did not exist to launch his firm. I could not believe it. All those nights I'd spent worrying about my increasing student debt, all the times I'd had to choose between textbooks and proper meals, and they'd always had money. They just decided to give it to Ben instead. When I challenged them about it, they attempted to defend their actions. They argued Ben needed the money more because he didn't have a college degree, whereas I would be all right because I was intelligent and would earn a good living as a doctor someday. They didn't seem to understand or care about the tremendous debt I had incurred or the stress I was experiencing. That was the final straw for me. I completed my degree and was accepted into medical school, but I cut off practically all contact with my family. I only spoke with them around significant holidays, and even then, it was quick and perfunctory. I immersed myself in my studies, determined to excel despite their lack of support. During my second year of medical school, I met Donna. She was a talented, compassionate law student. For the first time, I felt truly recognized and valued for who I am. We began dating, and she became my rock. She listened to me when I talked about my family troubles and never condemned me for choosing to distance myself from them. Following graduation, Donna and I married and relocated to Seattle for our respective residencies. We established a life together, away from my family and the agony of my past. 2 years ago, we welcomed our daughter, Lily, into this world. Becoming a parent caused me to think about my own childhood, and I promised myself that Lily would always feel loved and supported, no matter what path she took in life. Fast forward to now. I'm a successful pediatrician. Donna is making waves at a well-known law firm, and Lily is a lively 2-year-old who keeps us on our toes. Life is nice, but I'm still saddened by my family's treachery. A few weeks ago, I received a call from my mother. It was the first time we had spoken in months, and I sensed something was amiss. She was in tears, explaining that Ben's business had failed and that he had returned to live with them. Apparently, he had made some poor decisions, gotten into debt, and was now unemployed. My parents had to refinance their home to assist him. Suddenly, they want to reconnect with me. They've been calling and texting, requesting to visit and see their grandchild. My father even sent me an email expressing his pride in my accomplishment and his desire to make amends. Part of me wants to give them a chance. After all, they are my parents, and I miss having a family. I think about Lily and worry if I'm robbing her of grandparents. However, another part of me is angry and upset. They seem to want me in their lives now since Ben has disappointed them, and they need someone to be proud of. I do not know what to do. Should I provide them another chance? Should I keep them at arm's length, or should I stick with the distance I've developed over the years? Donna thinks I should at least listen to them, but she's also protective of me and doesn't want me to get injured again. She has offered to be present when I speak with them as a buffer and support system. I'm divided between the want for a family and the need to shield myself from additional misery. I am terrified of letting them back into my life. What happens if they hurt me again? What happens if they try to use me as a financial safety net now that Ben has fallen from grace? But then I look at Lily and wonder if I'm letting my past influence her future. Any advice is much appreciated. How can I deal with this scenario without being a doormat or allowing my anger to control me? How can I protect my own family while perhaps mending my ties with my parents? I feel like I'm at a crossroads, unsure which course to choose. Thank you for your responses. I went through every remark and appreciate the variety of viewpoints you've provided. I wanted to give you an update on what has happened since my previous post. After much thought and several long conversations with Donna, I decided to meet with my parents, but on my own terms. I proposed that we meet in a neutral area, such as a quiet cafe near my business, without my wife or daughter present. I wanted to hear them out without quickly involving my new family members. The days leading up to the encounter were fraught with apprehension. I found myself snapping at Donna over minor issues and having difficulty sleeping. The night before, I sat in Lily's room long after she had fallen asleep, admiring her serene expression and wondering if I'd made the correct decision. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the cafe early. I chose a table in the corner so we could have some privacy. As I waited, I couldn't help but think of all the times I had sat waiting for my parents to arrive at my events. Debate competitions, science fairs, and even my high school graduation party. They were often late, typically due to something involving Ben. But this time, they arrived early. I observed them approaching the cafe through the glass. They appeared older than I remembered and more worn down. My mother's hair was completely gray, and my father appeared to have shrunk, his once strong shoulders now slightly slumped. They entered the cafe, and for a little period, we all stared at each other. Then my mother ran forward and hugged me passionately. I flinched at first, unaccustomed to such demonstrations of devotion from her, but I gradually hugged her back. My father stood awkwardly to the side, visibly uncomfortable. We sat down, and I let them talk first. My mom performed the majority of the talking. She began by apologizing for the past, stating that they had understood how unfair they had been. She expressed how proud they were of my accomplishments and how they regretted not helping me more. Then came the kicker. They stated that Ben's situation had a role in their desire to reconcile. Apparently, his failing company venture was more than simply a bankruptcy. He became associated with some unscrupulous guys and ended up with gambling debts. My parents had to sell their vacation home and take out a second mortgage to help him out. As they talked, memories flooded back. I remembered the summer before I left for college when I begged to use the vacation home for a week with some friends. They had said no, claiming they intended to utilize it themselves. Later, I discovered that they had let Ben and his pals stay there for a month. I listened to everything silently, letting them talk. When they were finished, I took a deep breath and told them how I truly felt. I detailed every incident of favoritism, every time they ignored my accomplishments in favor of Ben's latest whim. I told them about the evenings I sobbed myself to sleep in college, wondering why I wasn't good enough to have their support. I told them about how I had to sell my laptop, a high school graduation gift from my grandma, to pay for textbooks. I described how during college, I had to work night shifts at a diner, coming home stinking of grease and fatigued, while they paid for Ben's partying. My father attempted to intervene, to defend their behavior, but I shut him off. I reminded him of all the football games he had attended for Ben, as well as how he had missed my debate team's state victory because he was at one of Ben's games. I informed them that while I appreciated their apologies, it did not erase years of pain and neglect. I made it obvious that if they wanted a relationship with me, it would be on my terms, which would require time and effort on their part. I also addressed the elephant in the room, Ben. I informed them that while I sympathized with his predicament, I didn't want to be his safety net or compete for their attention again. My life, my wife, and my daughter were my top priorities right now. As I spoke, I could see the pain and regret on their faces. My mother was silently crying, and my father appeared to have aged 10 years in the course of our chat. Part of me felt bad for causing them distress, but another part felt glad to finally express these things aloud. The conversation ended with mixed emotions. We agreed to take things slowly. I stated I'd be available for occasional phone conversations, but I made no guarantees regarding in-person visits or introducing them to Lily. I told them I needed time to comprehend everything and asked them to respect my boundaries. As I left the cafe, I felt an odd combination of melancholy and relief. It wasn't the heartfelt reconciliation some had hoped for, but it seemed genuine and essential. I walked to my car and sat there for a while, repeating the conversation in my head. When I arrived home, Donna was waiting for me. She took one look at my face and hugged me. We sat on the couch, and I told her everything. She listened without judgment, providing comfort and support. That night, when we were lying in bed, Donna asked me how I was feeling. I told her I was unsure. Part of me felt lighter, as if I'd finally let go of a load I'd been carrying for years. But another felt raw and exposed, as if an old wound had been reopened. I'm still processing things, but I feel like I've made a step toward healing, even if the path ahead remains unpredictable. I know it won't be easy, and there will be a lot to go through, but for the first time in years, I feel like I might be able to reconnect with my parents. I'll keep you updated as things progress. Thank you all for your encouragement and wisdom. It has given me the strength to confront this circumstance head-on. It's been approximately a month since my meeting with my parents, and I wanted to provide another update. Things have been complicated. True to my word, I have allowed only limited communication with my parents. We've had a few phone calls, mainly brief and embarrassing. My mother has worked quite hard, possibly to an excessive degree. She calls more frequently than I'm comfortable with, and is always curious about Lily. I've had to establish some boundaries there, telling her that she must earn the right to be a grandma. Last week, she called and spent 20 minutes telling me about a toy she had purchased for Lily. I had to interrupt her and remind her that she hadn't even met Lily yet, and it wasn't right to purchase her things at this point. She appeared to be hurt, but I kept my position. In contrast, my father has remained aloof. He has only spoken to me once, and it was a stiff chat. I get the impression he is battling with his pride, finding it difficult to confess he was wrong all these years. During our one chat, he largely inquired about my profession, as if attempting to comprehend the life I'd made without them. The real drama, though, came from an unexpected source, my brother Ben. He sent me a long, rambling email about 2 weeks after I met with my parents. It was part apology, part request for assistance. He wrote about how he had made mistakes in his life, how he regretted taking advantage of our parents, and how he wished he had been a better brother to me. As I read the email, memories flooded back. I remembered in high school when Ben borrowed my car without asking and had an accident. Our parents were outraged, but they paid for the repairs without holding Ben accountable. Meanwhile, I had to ride the bus to school for a month. Ben's email initially moved me. It appeared like a sincere effort at reconciliation. However, as I read on, the genuine intent of the email became clear. Ben was asking for money. He had a business idea that he was confident would cure all of his issues, and he asked me to invest. I was infuriated. Despite all that had happened over the years, he continued to see me as nothing more than a possible source of wealth. The business concept was unclear and poorly thought out. It involved a food truck selling gourmet hot dogs. He had clearly learned nothing from his past setback. I did not answer the email. Instead, I phoned my folks. The talk was tense. When I questioned if they knew about Ben's email, they said they did. In fact, they urged him to contact me. They believed that if Ben and I reconciled, it would help bring the family back together. I lost my composure at that time. I explained that their attempts at manipulation were precisely why I had separated myself in the first place. I reminded them of all the times they had allowed Ben's poor behavior, from covering for him when he cheated on tests in high school to bailing him out of jail after a DUI in his 20s. I made it clear that I was not interested in sponsoring another of Ben's schemes, and I was disappointed that they would even consider asking me after everything that had occurred. I informed them that if this was their notion of making amends, they needed to learn a lot about respect and boundaries. The call ended poorly. My mother was crying again, my father was defensive, and I was shivering in wrath. I felt as if all of our progress had been undone in an instant. After I cooled down, I discussed matters with Donna. She's been my rock through it all, providing support and a clear perspective when I needed it the most. We concluded that for the time being, it would be best to distance ourselves from my family. The trust that had been tentatively restored has been shattered, and I need time to comprehend it all. I feel discouraged and upset, but also strangely relieved. This incident proved that my suspicions were correct. My family still doesn't realize the anguish they've caused or respect the limits I've established. It's a difficult but important revelation. For the time being, my attention is focused on my own family, Donna and Lily. They are my top concern, and I refuse to let the drama with my parents and Ben detract from the enjoyment we've created together. Last night, while I was tucking Lily into bed, she wanted me to read her favorite story, The Giving Tree. As I read, I realized how different my relationship with her is from that with my parents. I want her to know she is loved unconditionally, not based on what she can provide or do. This morning, I sent my folks a brief email. I told them I needed some space and would contact them when I was ready. I also made it plain that any future relationship would be contingent on their ability to respect my limits and regard me as an equal, rather than merely a potential solution to their problems with Ben. I have not heard back from them yet, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Half of me is relieved by the quiet, but another half wonders whether they've given up on reconnecting. For the time being, I'm taking things one day at a time. I have a busy week at the hospital, and Donna and I are organizing Lily's 3rd birthday party. Life moves on, and I'm resolved to concentrate on the good aspects of my life rather than linger on the negative. I'll update again if something big happens, but for now, I believe it's time to finish this chapter and move on with my life. Thank you all for your help and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you realize. It's been 6 months since my previous update, and I felt it was time to discuss what's going on. My family situation, as well as my viewpoint on things, have altered significantly. First, let me explain the situation with my parents and Ben. After the argument over Ben's email, I kept my distance. I ignored calls and messages, concentrating on my business and my immediate family. It was difficult, particularly over the holidays, but I believed it was vital for my mental health. 3 months ago, I received a letter from my father. It wasn't an email or text, but rather a handwritten letter. The sight of his familiar handwriting triggered a flood of memories, birthday cards and messages in my lunchbox from when I was younger, before Ben came along and everything changed. In the letter, he did something I never expected. He gave a sincere and honest apology. He acknowledged their favoritism toward Ben, the pain they had caused me, and the mistakes they had made in attempting to reconcile. He made no excuses or asked for anything. He just expressed regret and a willingness to make amends, but only when I was ready. He talked about how he had been thinking a lot and realized how his own fears had influenced his actions. He stated that he had lived vicariously via Ben's sporting accomplishments since he felt inadequate in his own career. He claimed he had always been proud of my academic achievements, but didn't know how to express it. I was suspicious at first, but something about the message felt unusual. Maybe it was the exertion of writing it by hand, or perhaps enough time had elapsed for genuine thinking. Regardless, it paved the path for cautious communication. We've been talking more frequently lately, generally just my dad and me. Our interactions are still occasionally awkward, but they feel more genuine. He's been asking about my work and family, and he truly listens when I explain about my life. He's also been open about his own challenges, such as his difficulty acknowledging mistakes and his fear of losing his children. Last week, he asked if he might send Lily a birthday gift. Rather than simply saying yes, I suggested we video call so he could see her open it. I hadn't seen such delight on his face in years as Lily joyfully unwrapped the toy Dr. Kit he sent her. My mom and Ben's situation remains difficult. My mom has shown greater respect for my boundaries, which I appreciate. She's been sending out sporadic emails with family recipes and old photos. It's a modest gesture, but it appears like she's attempting to connect in an unobtrusive manner. Ben, I've learned, has finally found treatment for his gambling addiction and is now working a steady job for the first time in years. He has not contacted me personally, which is probably for the best right now. Dad indicated that Ben is going to Gamblers Anonymous sessions and trying to repay some of the money he owes our parents. The most significant change, however, has been in my own perspective. Throughout everything, I've learned that while I can't erase the past or control my family's actions, I can choose how I react to them. I've been working to let go of some of the anger and hatred I've harbored for so long. It is not easy, and old hurts still arise on occasion, but I'm trying. I have also developed a new appreciation for my own family. Donna has been tremendously supportive throughout this process, offering advice when I needed it, and simply listening when I needed to rant. Watching Lily grow and shaping her idea of family has made me think about what I wanted to mean for her. Last weekend, we enjoyed a picnic in the park. As I watched Donna push Lily on the swing, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. I understood that no matter what happened to my parents or Ben, I now have my own family, one based on love, trust, and mutual respect. For the time being, we are taking things day by day. I'm not rushing into anything, and I'm not closing any doors. My top priority is still my wife and daughter, but I'm cautiously enthusiastic about the possibility of healing some of the rifts with my parents. This path has been both painful and fascinating. I've learned a great deal about forgiveness, limits, and the complexity of family relationships. Whatever occurs next, I feel better prepared to deal with it. Thank you all for your help and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you realize.